Please try again. Cool. Let me get that ID again. You're hearing me?
But I muted it so we wouldn't get feedback.
Well, I don't know if we're hearing. Are we hearing Jeff?
We were earlier.
Oh, it would help maybe if I put.
I could hear Jeff. I lost a piece.
How about now, Jeff?
I'm hearing multi-system noise cancellation. It works.
Now we got you. I think. All right, everyone, we'll kick this whole thing off. So I want to welcome everyone to it's hard to believe we're already in April. Yeah, no kidding. Somebody told me today that today's the 100th day of the year. There we go. Maybe if I go on mute. And I will unmute myself. How's that? Maybe that'll work. All right. So yeah, I heard today was the 100th day of the year, so it's hard to believe that we're already 100 days into 2023. So time's flying when you're having fun. Certainly want to welcome everyone. Again, thanks for spending a part of your April beautiful evening out tonight. My goodness, just absolutely gorgeous weather. For those of you who don't know me, maybe haven't seen me in a while, I'm Dan, N2SRK, Club President. Glad that you're here. I want to do a quick introduction of the fellow officers. Paul?
Hey Dan, how are you? Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to hear. Good to be here. For about another 12 hours, and I'm back on the plane.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the meeting tonight. We're really glad you're here. We have several new faces here. We're going to go through those introductions in a minute, but great turnout as always in April.
Yes.
Got a lot of good things going on in the club the next few months, so make sure you keep abreast of the email blast that comes out every Sunday, sent out by none other than Brian up here. And we thank Brian for that. It would be one thing if we all sent submittals to him in a timely fashion, but we don't always do that, so we thank Brian. So again, thank you for being here. We have some fantastic activities coming up here, and if you're interested in coming along, you don't have to have a radio, you don't have to have anything, you just come out and join us. And we don't have food usually, but other than that, we have radios for you to get on and antennas, and you'll learn a lot. So
We usually find food.
yeah, that's exactly right. So again, thank you all for coming. And I want to just real briefly, Dan,
Please.
thank Jeff, AB0 Lima. Jeff, thank you very much. Jeff is our former chief technical officer, and he, for some reason, I don't know why, I still haven't figured that out, but he moved out to North Carolina. He and his wife moved out there, and he's building a home, and he's not very far from the beach. Is that maybe why he moved out there?
I think so.
It could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to thank Jeff ahead of time for doing the presentation remotely. It's quite a bit of work on his part and everybody's part to get that to happen, but thank you, Jeff. We really appreciate that. And I hope we all learned something tonight. And if you want to follow up on what we're doing tonight, Elmer Night next week
Got it.
is a hands-on, you can touch and feel all the parts and pieces of how the solar stuff that Jeff's talking about tonight, how it all goes together next Tuesday night, I believe.
I believe you're right.
We're going to have a lot of equipment, we're going to have hands-on, and we'll get to plug things together, and hopefully there won't be any sparks or anything. But come on out next Tuesday. It's a fantastic meeting. We've been having about the same turnout.
Absolutely.
For Elmer Night.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, thanks, Dan.
Awesome.
Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be back for a few hours for sure. Oh, we had Brian here. Brian, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Brian, WA0R. I'm the secretary. I'm the one that sends the blast out. So when you get stuff on Sunday morning, it comes through me. So if you have stuff for the blast, if you want to inform the rest of the club about things, be sure and let me know.
Thanks, Brian. Robert, I know you're floating around here somewhere. There he is.
I'm Robert, AE0CA, treasurer. Buddy Wrangler, T-shirt Wrangler.
Yeah. Keep us out of trouble. You're the Wrangler.
T-shirts are on order now, so boom.
Excellent. Scott?
Hi everybody, Scott, NA0MT, and I am one of your directors at large with Randy.
Awesome. Randy?
Hi.
Randy?
I'm Randy, A0TNG, and I'm also a director at large, literally.
And last but not least, Jeff.
Jeff, N0GQ, I'm the replacement for that, I'm our CTO.
All right. I certainly want to welcome you.
Jeff,
How many, do we have any first timers here tonight? All right, we got a few. So let's go around the room. We'll start in the front row. JT?
I'm JT, just thought I'd come out, check it out, see what's happening.
Glad you're here. Welcome.
What's your call sign?
KB0JT.
Love it.
I'm Brian, KC8 HPS. I just moved back to Colorado from Michigan.
Welcome home.
Yeah, it is. It's quite nice. And you guys have really got a good deal going here with amateur radio. Far more opportunity than where I came from. So, just real quick, I got some of my 900 equipment out yesterday, and I was working through the 900 repeater in Idaho Springs, and I talked to a couple of guys here, and they talked about it linking on 440. They're tied together. Anyhow, if somebody knows more about it, see me later.
He does. Absolutely. Welcome. We had all right, second row. Any no newbies in the second row? Third row.
Third row. I'm Chad, N0WKP. Joined the club as of this morning. Found the club over the weekend online.
Wow, don't wait around.
Yeah. Awesome. Glad you're here. We got a couple others.
Kevin, KF0MFP, just happened to be in the neighborhood.
Excellent. Glad you're here. So KF0, that's a relatively new license, isn't it?
This morning.
Hey! All right. Even better. Even better. I think we have one more. Any more? There were a few hands that went up. No? Okay. We got it all. Well, anytime somebody's newly licensed, and we try to do this, we actually have something special for anybody who's newly licensed. And getting it this morning, that's a really fresh license. So we have a book for you. courtesy of our friends at the ARRL. Get on the air with HF Digital. So there you go. You got it. Before we jump into Jeff's presentation, and this may take a while considering how wonderful the sunspots have been. Any soapbox comments? So we've heard about a new license. Any upgrades? No recent upgrades? How about New Countries Worked?
St. Helena Island.
Nice.
I got Australia twice mobile on 20 meters on sideband.
That's pretty good.
On 50 watts.
That's real good.
It blew me away. No.
That's wild. I picked up Ghana. That was a good one. There's a Russian de-expedition going on there, so got them.
Not really a new country, but I got my QDX out, which is 3 to 4 watts, put a ham stick on my car, and worked 23 POTUS coast to coast.
Nice. That's real nice.
3-4 watts is all you need to work
Yeah.
with FDM.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Israel on phone.
That's real good. That's real good. Cameron?
Got Sweden during the World CG Worldwide contest.
Nice.
Which is good from Cherry Creek State Park. And then just the other soapbox comment is all of the radios are out. I have no radios left in my house except for my personal stuff. So
Oh, everything's
good job
being
on
rented.
everybody. Dutex 10 meters is open.
Wide
Locked.
open.
So when I have the 7300 or the 991A back, borrow it. You get it on the air, you can make a bunch of contacts on your little chunk of 10 meters on HF single sideband.
Wide open. Yeah, so if you're a technician and you want a really good taste of what DX will be, borrow, beg, go to another club member's house, get on 10 meters. You're going to have an absolute blast right now. Take advantage of it while the striking is hot. Any other soapbox comments? New gear? Maybe a new radio, new HT? Something on order? Wow.
Okay,
All right.
just to give you an answer to that. I was
Thanks,
just telling
Tom.
Jeff. So I snuck in. We were talking about things we could buy
Yes.
without being noticed. that was the context of the conversation. So we all so far, my wife has not noticed my new antenna tuner.
She just commented on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So I upgraded to a better Yaesu FTTX 3000 last fall that I inherited from a friend of mine who passed away, and I discovered how lousy the tuner is in a big expensive Yaesu radio that I thought would be amazing, and I couldn't tune my antenna on 80 meters, so I had to buy a tuner. So had to do that.
Yeah.
So I got an LDG automatic antenna tuner. So it's more than a piece of coax.
That'll tune a paper clip.
So anyway, we're working on that.
Excellent. Excellent. Cool. Good share. Well, without further ado, I certainly want to welcome Jeff, 80L, to the meeting. Jeff has just been an instrumental part of the Parker Radio Association for a number of years, and he's actually continuing that journey as he was able to move out to North Carolina. And Jeff tonight has a great presentation on all things solar. Jeff's going to forget more about solar than I'm ever going to know. And I know that he just has an absolutely awesome presentation lined up for tonight. So Jeff, the floor is yours. We're going to turn it over to you, my friend. And we've been keeping track of your Rockies out here. They're not off to a bad start.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
It's still early.
Exactly.
So Jeff, the floor is
Hope the
yours.
dreams die in August.
Yeah. Well, the floor is yours, sir. We're going to turn it over to you.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Karpinski, 80L, coming to you this evening from the beautiful town of Surface. I'm getting a bit of an echo here. I'm going to take out the headphones for a moment. For the beautiful town of Surf City, North Carolina. I think you guys beat us on the weather today, though. I think if I heard right in the news, you guys were into the 80s, and we just barely broke 70. But we're supposed to be into the 90s here shortly. So I will say this is my first winter on my orbiting this planet nearly 60 times that I never saw snow. So that was pretty incredible. But anyway, so tonight we're going to one in just in case. Tonight we're going to talk about going solar. So let me bring a presentation up right quick. Okay, are the slides coming up okay? Excellent. All right, so tonight we're going to kind of focus on solar for ham radio. I mean, solar is a pretty broad spectrum. I mean, people run their entire houses off, go off grid. But I'm going to focus our energy tonight a little bit on how hams can leverage this. And I'm sure many of you probably do this better than I ever have. But this is fresh for me in the past few years, and I've had pretty good success with it. If any of you have seen my trailer at a field day, I've got a setup I'm pretty darn happy with. And I think it would translate well into taking your own QTH shack off grid, if that was something that interested you as well. So without further ado, let's jump in. So we're going to talk about taking your shack off grid. We're going to cover a few major points, including some math. We're going to talk about calculating a power budget. Then we'll get into some details on solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, and we'll wrap up with some interesting accessories and tips. Okay, yes, unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of math because it makes your life much simpler down the road. This is all Ohm's law stuff, so it should be old hat to most. But the first formula, power equals voltage times current. And if you think in terms of what you want to do with solar, in terms of power or watt hours, it makes your life a lot easier. You're not having to translate between 120 volts, 12 volts, 5 volts. I mean, watt is a watt. And so if you reduce everything to that, it just makes things simpler. And there's a couple examples here on the screen. A bog standard, 100-watt solar panel that you see all over, they actually are pretty close to 12 volts by 5 amps in full sun. So yeah, 100 watts makes sense. Batteries are where things get a little interesting because for whatever marketing purposes, they're always sold as amp hours. And I think part of that is because lead acid is kind of a variable voltage continually. So it's kind of tough to nail down a lead acid into a watt hour form, but I took a shot at it here. A 100 amp hour lead acid battery is nominal 12.6 volts, 100 amps. But the gotcha is you can only use half of that. We'll go into a little more on that later. But so you've effectively got 630 watt hours to play with. Conversely, 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery yields 1,320 watt hours. So this 13.2 volts, 100 amps, and you get to use 100% of that. So it's very nice. The other formula to kind of keep in the back of your mind is calculating voltage drops. So then you got a voltage equals current times resistance. So say you've got your solar set up, you're going field day, and you figure, it'd be nice to have 50 or so foot of wire so I can move my panel around to chase the sun, get as much as possible. But you go look at wire prices, and holy smokes, 10 gauge 50 foot, it's not exactly cheap. 18 gauge is a whole lot cheaper. What's the catch? Well, the catch is voltage drop. Even something as small as 5 amps over 50 foot, you'll have a 3.2 volt drop, about 16% loss out of your solar panel before it even gets into your battery. That's pretty substantial. Conversely, 10 gauge is only a 0.5 volt drop, or 2% loss. So you get what you pay for. But another point to keep in mind, if you get into working with the inverters, this is the one that gets a lot of people. They think, well, they need 120 volts. And they want to run something that's only a little 200 watts, but they don't think about the voltage drop. Because 200 watts at 120 volts is much closer to 20 amps being drawn off the battery. You need a huge wire between the battery and the inverter, and a lot of people miss that detail. Okay, next let's talk a little bit about formulating a power budget. So as I've camped with this setup, time after time, people come up and ask me, this is cool. I want to do solar. I want to do batteries too. How big of a battery should I get? Or how many solar panels should I get? And I come back to people and I say, well, what's your power budget? And they say, huh? Basically, to know what to buy, you need to know how much power you need. So you need to tally up your watt hour needs for a day. And this approach I'm about to go through here is probably a little bit novel. I've never seen anybody else do this, but I think it's a really good way and clean way of thinking about this. As you size out a system and don't have to worry about overspending or coming up short. So we get your daily watt hour needs. And then from that, we can determine how much solar wattage is required. Because in an ideal situation, day to day, you want to generate as much as you consume, because then there's no impact on your battery. So a 100-watt panel, like you see here, this is mine on the picture here, generates 100 watts. And if you can assume you're going to get about 5 good hours of sun on a sunny day, that means you're going to be generating 500 watt hours. So if your consumption is under 500, you're golden. So once you got that piece of the puzzle solved and know what you want to do for your solar panels, the next phase is, well, how big of a battery do I need? And ultimately that comes down to is how much crappy weather can you stand? If, let's say, I'm good for 3 days of suffering, 3 days. So that's 3 days where I'm not generating any power. So I need 3 days times my daily watt hour needs. And that's the size battery I'll require. So as a quick real world example, because this is exactly my numbers. So my little trailer here, right at the front of it, you can see there's a refrigerator. So that's roughly 200 watt hours a day that consumes. I generally give myself about a 75 watt hour allowance for operating for plain ham. With my 891, that's easily 2 hours of operating with 25% transmit time, and at full power, 100 watts. So if I behave myself and throttle the power back, I can get even more operating time. As many of you have seen, I have a full internet setup, cellular internet setup. And I generally just run it the whole time I'm camping. So that's 30 watt hours a day that thing uses. When I turn in for the night, I tend to want to watch a ball game or a movie on the TV. So that's about 30 watt hours a day. If it's hot, I want to run the fan while I'm sleeping. So that's about 25 watt hours. And then I generally recharge my cell phone every day. That's 18 watt hours. And then I get myself about 5 hours for lights, after the sun goes down. So my grand total that I consume on an average day is 383 watt hours. So with my 100 watt solar panel there, I need 3.83 hours of sun per day to basically stay status quo. It's perfect. At the elevation of Colorado, the sun can be upwards of 7 hours a day, usable sun during the summer, and as little as 3 in the winter. So 5's safe medium. So what do I do with bad weather? So I mentioned, I'm good for about 3 days. After 3 days of rain, I'm going to go home, get a hot shower, and get dry. So that's 303 watt hours by 3. So I need 1,149 watt hours worth of battery storage. And my lithium iron phosphate battery gives me 1,320. So I'm covered, and I got a little bit of buffer there. And I've been running this setup now this is going into the 4th year, I think. And these numbers have held out time after time. It's just been perfect. Okay, so we now have a power budget. Let's talk about some solar panels or photon harvesting devices. There's 2 primary flavors. As you can see, there's black and blue. Basically monocrystalline versus polycrystalline. Monocrystalline are the newer technology, a bit more efficient, a bit more expensive historically. They're made, each cell is made from a single silicon crystal. and they're typically back in color, of course. The polycrystalline are a little more old school. They were around first. The cells are made from melting together fragments of silicon crystals, and that's why they kind of have that mottled look. By the nature of that manufacturing, they're a little bit more eco-friendly, if that's something that, you know, factors into your calculus. They tend to be a little bit cheaper, and they're blue. The one perk they have is they do tend to handle shadows and clouds a little bit better, so they don't take as much of a loss when a branch is throwing a shadow across your panel versus monocrystalline. But in reality, the technology of manufacturing solar panels has matured so greatly. The cost differences and the efficiency differences, you're almost down to rounding error. They're very, very similar. Let's talk briefly about the flexible versus rigid panels. The flexible ones, I mean, everybody looks at that, oh, that's nice, lightweight, I can roll that up when I don't need it. Very, very aerodynamically mounted to a camper or whatever. But there are some downsides. They're quite a bit more expensive. The larger ones, especially in about 100-watt range, are very fragile. And the number one killer of solar cells is heat. So if you mount these down to a camper roof or something, ultimately they got about a 2 to 4 year lifespan before you're replacing them. That's a pretty good investment to be dealing with that. One place where these make great sense is on sailboats, or boats out in the ocean. That's a no-brainer. They can glue those right to the surface of the boat and then just replace them every couple of years. The rigid panels are obviously going to be easier to orient for maximum sun exposure. I mean, if you get your angle just right, you could eke out another 5 or 10% efficiency. They have very long life because there's good airflow around the cells, but they are comparatively heavy. A typical 100-watt panel is about 15 to 16 pounds. So something you're not going to throw one of these on your back and go on a soda. There is a middle ground with the foldable portable panels. And so you can find some of these at Harbor Freight and some other places. So they're basically rigid, but fold up into a more portable form. They can make a lot of sense if you're space constrained or weight constrained. The downside is they tend to be a little pricey. Okay, let's say you're taking your shack off grid and your budget is over what one panel can deliver, or you want to be able to operate, stay a status quo year rounds. You're going to go year rounds. You're going to go worst case and say I'm going to assume I only have 3 or 4 hours of sun a day. So you need multiple panels. Well, beauty is all these solar panels are built to be chained together. Every solar panel built in has a blocking diode, so they can be, piled on and they can accumulate the overall power from multiple panels. You can even chain mismatched panels, like a 50-watt and a 100-watt, but there are some gotchas there because it's kind of a least common denominator. So if one panel outputs 15 volts and the larger panel outputs 20, the least common denominator wins. So the overall array is going to be producing a 15, so you're going to lose some efficiency out of your larger panel. So you want to try to match them the best you can. To stitch these together, you got a couple of choices. You can wire them in parallel or series. Wired in parallel, let's say if you're assuming 2 panels, your current will double, your voltage will stay the same. So 200-watt panels, you would still have 20 volts, but you would have 10 amps coming into your charge controller. As we mentioned before about voltage drop, you got to watch that because you start doing more panels in parallel and that current goes up, your wiring requirements go up too, and wire's not cheap. But there are pre-made Y cables available for sale to make paralleling, 2 or 3 panels together really easy. So it can be a nice path of least resistance, especially for something like if you want to set up 2 or 3 panels, off the back of your shack, or it's manageable to take those camping. It's a doable setup. One perk of Parallel is they're relatively shade resistant. So if one panel gets thrown into the shade, your other one will still be able to deliver some power. Alternatively, you can wire these things up in series. And in this scenario, assuming 2 panels, your voltage will double, but your current will be unchanged. So with 200 watts, you'd be looking at 40 volts at 5 amps. So your wiring is not so difficult. You don't have, because the gauge of the wire is all based upon the amperage that it needs to deliver. So the wiring can be a little bit more complex, but it is cheaper. The big downside to series is shade brings the whole party down. So if you think back to the early days, we all had the incandescent Christmas tree lights. You know, if you had the fancy ones that the lights were in parallel and one burned out, the rest of them still ran. If you had the crummy Christmas tree lights that were wired in series and one bulb went out, the whole chain went out. Same thing applies here. We'll get into controllers a little bit more later, but generally speaking, PWM-based controllers don't handle higher voltages well. So you're probably going to be going to a maximum power point tracking type controller. We'll cover that in detail here in a bit. One last thing to just keep in your mind, especially like if you're going big for off-grid shack, you get beyond 2 panels, 200 watt panels, you're north of 40 volts. So 3 panels, you're 60 volts. That's in the ouch range, especially with DC. I've been bit by that kind of DC and it hurts. So keep those things in mind. All right, get down to the brass tacks here. What are my recommendations? Let me stick my neck on the line here for solar panel. I personally own the top one there, the Rich Solar 100 watt poly. That's what you saw in the earlier picture. They're running about $100 now. There is another one that's widely regarded. I've not personally used it, but a lot of people really like them, and that's the HQST 100 watt monocrystalline. They're about $80. But wait, Jeff, you just said that the poly were cheaper. I know this is the magic of supply and demand. When I bought my Rich Solar, it was 63. And then all the good reviews came out. Everybody loved these things, so they ran the price up. This HUST is relatively new, but my understanding is it's literally the same panel that Renogy is selling, but a lot cheaper. And in fact, I'm hearing that Renogy and HUST are owned by the same people. For flex panel recommendations, honestly, unless you're on a boat, I would avoid them. The larger panels are just crazy fragile and they only last a couple of years. Now, if your solar requirements are really low, let's say you want to stretch out your operating time on a soda or something, or POTA. I mean, there are, foldable and rollable mil-spec, basically. I think Scott might have one. I'm sure he'll bring it to show and tell. That's pretty impressive. I mean, those things are rugged, but they tend to be fairly low wattage and they're very spendy. For the foldable panels, I'd give that a maybe. If your space or you're space constrained or weight constrained, yeah, you might have to go that route. Expect to bury a premium. But if we'll talk about power stations here momently, but if a power station seems to be the right approach for you, a lot of these power station manufacturers have their own foldable solar solutions that are completely integrated, which makes a nice plug and play solution. All right, on to batteries. Lithium, lithium, lithium. But lead acid's still around. So let's talk about it for just a moment. Your good old lead acid batteries, they generate 2.1 volts per cell. And your good old car battery has 6 cells in a series for the nominal voltage of 12.6 volts. Perfect. So why do we still have these things, these old boat anchors? Well, number one, they have spectacular temperature resistance. I mean, think about it. They start our car in the winter. They start it in the desert. They just work. They're very inexpensive, but they're also very heavy. We mentioned earlier about being able to only use 50% of a lead acid battery. And here's the details. Generally speaking, once you discharge a lead acid below about 50% of its capacity, the grids inside will start corroding, and sulfation will occur, which increases the internal resistance of the overall battery pack. And eventually the resistance raises to a point where the battery will no longer accept a charge from a normal charger. All right, lead acids come in flavors. There's grape, cherry. Oh no, those are Skittles. Yeah, there's a few out there, and some of these, I'm sure most of you have seen the gel, maybe not. But let's just start with the classic. The flooded car battery. Liquid electrolyte inside, it can spill if the battery's tipped over. They vent a little hydrogen gas while they're charging. Got to keep that in mind. But they are the longest life out of the lead acids. I mean, think about it. These things start your car for 5+ years before you got to replace a battery. So that's impressive. The other kind you see a lot of is the maintenance-free, and they're typically absorbed glass mat or AGM batteries. They're same electrolyte, but it's sealed into these or pads inside. So they're spill-free, they're sealed, so there's no outgassing risk with normal use. So they can be mounted in any that goes killing me. They can be mounted in any orientation, but they are maintenance-free. One thing about the AGMs is they have really great tolerance for cold. The one on this list that you probably aren't as familiar with, and you probably want to avoid as a ham, is the gel batteries. They tend to be pricey, but the key thing against hams is they do not like high discharge rates. They're much better at providing a trickle charge. But they do support a much deeper discharge because the electrolyte is basically jello. So it seals these things in nice and tight. They support a better discharge, but the biggie for the gels is they're spectacular with heat. So you tend to see these things used like in a traffic, the big boxes they run the traffic sign. It stores all, so they use gels to maintain the programming. Emergency exit signs in factories and so forth, they tend to be gel. But for a ham, there's generally not going to be a lot of great use for us. Okay, let's step into these lithium batteries now. Lithium. Lithium polymer. This is probably the one that's around you all the time. You don't even realize it anymore. These are used in your phones, used in your laptops, used in the hoverboards. I mean, they're everywhere. The specifics are, lithium polymer cell is 3.7 volts. And manufacturers will series and parallel the geometries of this to get whatever overall voltage they want, and then use voltage regulation to get into something usable for them. Lithium polymer, at least in the market today, has the highest energy density. So that's the most power you can get for weight. That's why lithium polymer is used in Teslas. And I think pretty much all of the EV are using lithium polymer or something, some variant thereof. The gotcha is lithium polymer does not suffer fools or poor manufacturing well. Remember the Christmas with the Chinese hoverboards catching flame under the trees. That was why. Lithium polymer has very, very strict requirements for charge and discharge voltage, current, and temperature, or things can very easily get exploding. The other downside to lithium polymer is it's only good for about 500 and so cycles, full charge cycles. So that's why you're replacing your cell phone every 3 or 4 years. Battery goes bad. These things generally can have the highest cost per watt hour when you think of it that way. But where you're generally going to see from a battery storage type that we'd be interested in would be in a power station. Like you see here on the screen, the Jack rig. I'm sure everybody's familiar with these. Yeah, they're spendy, but they definitely have a place, especially if you can leverage the expense for other things, for tailgating, for working around your property. I mean, it's there's no arguing it's very beneficial here. I mean, you got this box that can output AC, DC, USB. They generally have solar charge controllers built in, and they're very powerful. So if this makes sense for you, it might be worth that higher cost per watt hour. One last form of lithium polymer that can be interesting for hams is remote control battery packs. So these are the RC cars. And you can find these at hobby shops, and they'll generally be listed as a 4S. So they're 4 cells wired in a series. So 4S RC battery pack, go hunt for those. Relatively low cost, but holy moly, can these things pump out the current. I mean, these things won't blink at putting up 20 C. And if you're not familiar with C, it's a measure of how much current a battery can put out. So if this is a 5 amp hour battery pack and it's rated for 20 C, it means it can instantaneously dump 100 amps. So it's for something where you're playing ham, where your current demands are relatively low until you're transmitting. This is perfect. But do be aware, at a 4S with 3.7 volts, a fully charged battery pack is going to be 15 plus volts. So you want to make certain that your equipment can tolerate that. RC battery packs are also pretty light on protections. We talked about the risks of things getting exploding. You want to make sure you understand if you get into this world that you've got the proper type of charger and you're using it correctly. All right, on to my favorite, and I think a lot of people's favorite these days, lithium iron phosphate. 3.3 volts per cell. Typically, these are wired, for us anyway, 4 cells in series, which gives us 13.2 volts in a pack. Well, if that's not a match made in heaven for hams, I don't know what is. Unlike the lithium polymers, these things are extremely safe and extremely durable. It's just about impossible to destroy these things or make them catch fire. Even if you puncture them, all they do is make some rather nasty smoke, but they don't explode. A lithium iron phosphate cell is good for 6,000 plus cycles. So if you make an investment in a lithium iron phosphate battery, write it into the will to your grandkids. It's going to last that long. These cells have crazy low internal resistance, so they have correspondingly high discharge capacity. Some of the batteries out there are 40 C. So again, and in the terms of it, you get a little tiny, 5 amp hour version. That means it could instantaneously pump out 200 amps. It's nuts. Doesn't mean you need to pay attention as you're working around these things, because it will instantly turn a screwdriver into liquid. They're less than half the weight of lead acid. They're not as light as the lithium polymer, but they're still, very lightweight, very lightweight, powerful batteries. These things were quite expensive, but the prices have really come down in the past couple of years. The photo here on the screen is my setup. So I got into this party early when, 100 amp hour, 13.2 volt, basically car replacement type batteries were $800 to $1,000. But, makers also discovered that we could order the individual cells directly from the factories in China at relatively affordable price, and then you just you waited 4 months for the slow boat to haul them across. The cells aren't as cheap anymore, especially with the tariffs and everything, and shipping is outrageous. So the DIY aspect of these has kind of fallen by the wayside. I mean, you can still find some cells around. Especially like they call them B-grade cells. So they've come out of end of life out of medical equipment, but with 6,000 plus cycles, they still have a lot of life left in them. So sometimes you can find those cells here stateside. Find people that are selling them. So if you're really focused on rolling your own, it's still possible, but a little more challenging. With every good thing, there seems to always be a downside, and the one weakness of lithium iron phosphate is they must never, ever be charged below freezing. And generally speaking, the battery management system inside the battery, for most manufacturers, take care of that. They basically shunt off any inbound current if it's, since the temperature pack is, below 0 Celsius. If the battery you buy doesn't, or you make one like I did that doesn't have that ability, you need to make sure your charge controller has some sort of temperature detection, since charge below freezing. Ultimately, I mean, if you did like I did, if this is for camping, you stick the battery pack inside. I mean, how often does the inside of your camper go below freezing? It's pretty rare. You actually can use these batteries below freezing, pretty much down to 0 Fahrenheit, but they can't be charged. So, as I mentioned earlier, with the lithium iron phosphate, you get what you pay for. They're 100% usable capacity. I mean, in reality, there is some subtleties and voltage minimums and maximums, but the BMS handles that, and that's that little orange thing in the picture there on top of the battery. My battery was a off-the-shelf BMS that I bought. So that takes care of all the logistics, is making sure that each individual cell stays balanced and that they're not overly depleted or overly charged. So if you buy a 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, you get 100 amp hour or more. Sometimes they'll underrate them just to make it a better deal for you. These type batteries have extraordinarily flat discharge rate. So they charge you charge them at 14.6 volts. So the charging will stop when they reach 14.6. And so if you start using it, within a minute or two, the pack will drop down to 13.2 volts. You'll be like panicking, like, whoa, why is it dropping so quick? But there it stays until it is empty, until it's down to about 2% left, and then it'll roll off, and then the BMS will cut it out. The discharge rate is so flat that there's no good way to know what the available capacity, how much you've used or how much is left in your lithium iron phosphate battery, unless you add something like a shunt, which basically monitors and measures the current in and current out. It's not like the lead acid where you let the battery rest for a minute, take a voltage, and make a pretty good guess of what's left. That doesn't work here. Okay, so battery recommendations. And I think both of these top ones, the lithium iron phosphate, are for sale on Amazon. So I've not personally used any of these because I rolled my own, but I've heard really good things. The Roypow, and for marketing purposes, they call them 12 volt, but they are 13.2. 100 amp hour, $400. So when I built what you just saw, when I built mine all in, I was just under 300. So it's good stuff. Amper time is really popular. And it's about 350 less than I just looked on Amazon a few days ago. And they were in stock. Good quality. These are both good quality builds, well constructed. The amper time does not have any low temperature protection built in. So factor that into your setup. Let's say you decide that you'd rather go the power station route. It just, having something that you can use for multiple things makes a lot of sense to you. I would encourage you to take a look at the Bluettis. We showed a Jackery earlier. But the Bluettis, the nice quirk about those is they use lithium iron phosphate cells. So your big investment you're putting into a power station is going to last you a whole lot longer. It's going to be a lot safer, but they are heavier than the competitors. So keep that in mind. Generic off-brand lithium polymer power stations. There's some crazy cheap stuff out there. You think this is a bargain. Yeah. I've seen videos of these things literally not being charged, not doing anything, just sitting on a shelf in someone's garage and catch on fire. So I would stay away from the generics. I mean, if you're going to do the lithium polymer stuff, stick with the names you recognize. Jackery. Mine's blocking, but you'll recognize them. I mean, they're well advertised. Lead acid batteries, in general terms, I would avoid. It's just such old tech, unless you get something free. I mean, you work in IT, or you have connections to the data center, and they've just rolled out a bunch of 200 amp hour lead acids out of their UPS. Yeah, free. Yeah, maybe if weight's not an issue for you. But otherwise, if you're buying it, I think it's money better spent putting towards lithium iron phosphate. Okay, charge controllers. So this is the magic that switches, it converts the sun into something usable to keep our battery charged. They come in two primary flavors. The old school is PWM, or pulse width modulation. It's cheaper. It can be less efficient under less than ideal sun conditions. Their methodology of working is very simple though. If your solar panel is pumping out 20 volts, the charge controller just starts chopping that up with pulse width modulation so that the battery sees an average of what it needs for its optimal charge voltage. The current just flows through. The current is what it is. So if you've got 5 amps coming in, 5 amps goes to the battery. 10 amps, 10 amps goes. It's pretty low tech and simple. Pulse width modulation in any form, as a ham, you've probably been around it, it could be noisy. You see PWM in LED light controllers, and everybody's experienced the joy of those operating HF. The newer technology is a bit more expensive, but becoming less so, but it can be radically more efficient, and that is maximum power point tracking. So maximum power point tracking takes advantage of a quirk of solar cells, and that the optimal power output of a solar panel varies depending upon the load that it sees. So a maximum power point charge controller is continuously varying the load to the panel to eke out every last watt it can get, and it works really well. Especially in suboptimal conditions. I mean, where it's a little bit cloudy, a little bit hazy. These type controllers can really push the panel to give you everything they possibly can. MPPT controllers, they can be engineered in all kinds of ways. I mean, they can be made to handle, massive, 60, 100 panel arrays. So the voltage coming in can be in the thousands of volts. So these things can be engineered in all kinds of ways. Another nice feature of the MPPT versus PWM is, some people don't realize this, but solar panels at night actually work in reverse. They will suck current out of your battery and they will subtly glow like a light bulb. MPPT makes sure that doesn't happen. MPPT controllers should be less RF noisy, but you got a lot of circuitry going on in there, so you'll find some good, some bad. Charge controller recommendation. And well, here's where my bias shows up, and I think it will with some other folks there in the PRA. I only have one recommendation for a ham, and that's this right here, the Epic Power Gate by West Mountain Radio. This thing is just amazing. It was specifically made for hams, but it really is ideal for a camping trailer because that's what I used. And one of the reasons that I sing its praises so much is it covers both DC and solar charging of your battery. It effectively is a UPS. So your radio, power goes out. I mean, if your radio is you're playing radio and the power is on, the power gate will feed you off the grid. If the grid goes out, it instantly switches you over to the battery. You'll never even see a blip. If there's solar coming in, it will keep charging the battery. This all just happens and transfers back and forth transparently, seamlessly. It's just so cool. There's nothing else. There's no other charge controllers on the market that have this kind of functionality. But there are some limitations. The built-in charger on both solar and off the power supply is limited at 10 amps. So that's pretty ideal if you got 50 to 100 amp hour worth of battery. If you got 200 amp hour at 10, that means you're looking at 20 plus hours to fully charge a depleted battery. That might not be great. The overall output is 40 amp out of this, which is, I think that's going to meet most ham operators' needs. But if yours is big, if you need more current out than 40, this won't suit your needs. One last limitation is the Epic PowerGate only has a 30 volt solar input. So, 100 watt panel, it's 20 volts, perfect. 2 panels related in series would be at 40 volts, no bueno. So if you wanted to do multiple panels with the Epic PowerGate, they would need to be paralleled, and in reality, 2. Because at 3 panels, if you're at 30 amps, you'd be at 15 amps. That's 5 more than the charger can accept anyway, so it's wasted. The Epic PowerGate, because it was made for hams, is extremely RF quiet. I mean, one of my favorite places to play radio, play HF, is when I'm camping, just because the noise floor is so absurdly low in your middle of nowhere. And even when this thing is charging off the solar panels, I can't tell the difference. But even if you could, they put a suspend button right on the front, so you can pause all charging and work whatever crazy station you are that's at 1S unit or below. Obviously, as you can see, these things use the Anderson power poles that we all know and love. And that's just perfect. And they support every possible kind of battery chemistry. With simple jumpers inside, but if you're the real propeller head and you want to get in and tweak every little parameter, it's all in there via USB. Go to town. The Epic PowerGate does support a temperature probe on the board, and that's what I used for my setup. Since I didn't have that ability in my battery, I got I bought the temperature probe from West Mountain. It sits down inside my battery, and it's perfect. All right, so when would you want to avoid an Epic PowerGate? We kind of touched on most of these, but if you're more than 30 volts or 10 amps of solar, you need to look for another solution. More than about 100 amp hours of storage, that might not be the best fit. And then 40 amps current requirement. All right, so what kind of alternatives should you look at if the Epic PowerGate didn't meet your needs? The 2 big players are Victron and Renogy, and you can, look at their websites. They both have huge product lines to support everything from, little setups comparable to the PowerGate to running your entire house. There's a fellow in Vegas that it's kind of like the de facto off-grid and solar and battery guru, Will Prowse, and he has setups. He basically has a complete solar setup that's dedicated to charging his Tesla. Then has another one that runs all of his air conditioners, and he's in Vegas, so he doesn't pay the grid a penny for his power. These things really do scale. While pulse width modulation, like I mentioned, isn't preferred, Renogy does have some very low cost ones that are pretty nice. So if budget's super tight, it's a possibility. If you're really hardcore and you know your way around the soldering iron, there's a link, and I'll make sure these notes are up on the website so you can click on it. But build your own solar controller, and this one's a 1 kilowatt. It looks pretty nice. If you do decide to go to the power station route for your solution, check the owner's manual. A lot of them have onboard charge controllers. The Blue Eddy does, and they'll work with any solar panel. Some of them try to lock you in. They'll have support for solar, but it will be their own with their proprietary connections and their own charge controller built into the panels. One last option, Harbor Freight sells a lot of solar products. They actually tend to be pretty decent quality, but they're overpriced. But they got some folding portable panels with an integrated PWM controller. And if you find the right sale and one of those famous $25 coupon or 25% coupons, maybe. So charge controller gotchas. Very few charge controllers support DC and grid charging like the Epic PowerGate. I love that functionality. So if you need to replicate it, you'll need to put some thought into it and work with your vendor because your DC or grid charge and your solar charge controller, they need to be able to play well together. I mean, one could fool the other one by raising the voltage to the point where the other one thinks the battery's charged. So there might be some coordination there. You definitely need to know your battery chemistry and your charge requirements. Not all charge controllers, even the expensive ones, support all chemistries. Some of the really nice ones don't properly support lithium iron phosphate. And a good clue for that, if you see them talking about trickle charge on lithium iron phosphate, that's danger, Will Robinson. Lithium iron phosphate never requires trickle charge and should never be trickle charged. So, and know your requirements. When you purchase a battery, the manufacturer will give you all the details of what your charge voltage should be, and so forth. Just make sure that your charge controller supports it. Last thing with setting up charge controllers, and really all of these systems, is never trust wire polarity. There's no standards. Even between black and red, you would think that would make sense, but there's manufacturers that have flipped the SAE standard. So as you're building your system, take your meter and wire it step by step through so nothing blows up on you. Okay, wrapping up here, home stretch. Accessories, inverters. They're just, unless you absolutely have something that requires 120 volts, just stay away from them. They're noisy as heck, they're inefficient, and they're very power hungry. Like I mentioned it earlier, even a small 200 watt AC load, by the time you take it overhead of the inverter and everything, it's 20 amps out of your battery. That's huge. You'll definitely need a fuse panel. Don't skimp there. Save your equipment. But there are a few, I kind of wish I'd gone this way, but they were really expensive back then, is a DC breaker panel. Because it seems like every time I do blow a fuse, I can't find my box of spares. That's just annoying. They now actually make, honest to goodness, DC breaker panels. And they're not, a good fuse panel, $50. A DC breaker panel is probably $250, but they're cool. Take a look at Blue Sea for both. They make a lot of great products for DC power protection solutions. If you get in designing or putting in breakers or cutoff switches into your setup, please remember they must be DC rated. You cannot use AC. They're very different animals. And a while back, I had saw a video, a demonstration of somebody that was used an old knife switch, and he would break an AC voltage and then break an equivalent DC voltage, and the arc on the DC was like a foot long. It's just crazy. We talked about shunts briefly earlier. If you do want to know, there's a picture of one here. I think this one on Amazon is like $15. Good way to know what's going on with your battery, how much is left, how fast it's charging. It's basically just a precision, very low ohm resistor, so that it can use the voltage divider equations to send a milliamp signal back to the display, which they can calculate, current in, current out. Good geek out factor. For wire on your setup, no copper clad. Stay away from that stuff. It's aluminum with a copper coating, just nasty. You want copper wire. If you're considering going if you're off-grid with your shack, and my next shack, I'm definitely going to do this. I started down this path when I was in Parker, but I never really got there. But the next shack is full DC. Lighting, laptop, everything. So when I'm playing radio, there's no AC around me. There can't be any QRM if your frequency is 0, right? And that's where I want to be. Okay, so thank you for your time, and hope some of this was informative. And if you have any questions, let's hear them.
Batteries and tie them together. So say,
absolutely.
I'm just kidding. A mess, and would that mess with things, or would you have to go in and do something internally to the cells to make sure everything plays nicely?
No, they can be chained together, series or parallel, depending on what your requirements are. And you're exactly right. The BMS will sort it out.
Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, what about internal resistance on the panels, an old panel versus a new panel? Is there such a thing?
I'm sorry, which kind of panel?
Like an older panel versus a newer panel, I mean, do they have any kind of internal resistance? Like a battery would have?
The solar panels themselves?
Yeah.
Very little. They do degrade, but it's pretty gradual. And ultimately what it is, it's just your total wattage out slowly declines. In fact, there's a huge market for used panels that are still, 85 and 90% output of their new build. And they're good bargains.
Any other questions? Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for sharing your time, talents, and treasures with us tonight. Absolutely great presentation. And for those of you who have hung around Jeff for a couple years, that last photo kind of reminded me of Jeff. That was we've had plenty of opportunities to experiment on those things. And Jeff, to join us all the way from North Carolina on something that you're so passionate about. Really envious of Field Day, just with what you had set up over the years. I thought it was really cool, and it was neat to see that evolve. And the neat part behind all of this is that at our Elmer Night coming up next week, this will all be hands-on. So we're going to continue the solar presentation, but it will be a much more in-depth hands-on experience where you'll get to see the various equipment that Jeff had mentioned in his presentation. So there'll be a lot of look, see, touch, play, and more questions with it. So again, Jeff, thanks again for just a great job. All right, well, we'll move on to the balance of the meeting, and in checking the time, they usually give us about a 20-minute warning, so we're gonna bounce through the balance of this agenda relatively quickly. PRA participation in Parker Days. Who wants to jump on that one? Paul, Scott? Scott, Paul?
Okay.
Yeah, well, Scott's up.
Scott's up. All right, let's go.
As Bill O'Reilly would say, keep it pithy.
Quickly. So Parker Days is coming up at the end of June. I'm sorry, the middle of June, the 10th. Sign up on the website. We still have slots available. Jeff, last count we had about
Hasn't changed.
about 17 spots left.
Yeah.
Out of 66 roughly.
Out of 66.
So we still need some help. Go in, you can take a look at the Sign Up Genius in there, and you can pick your spot or spots plural. We're happy to have you for more than one. Spots are roughly 4-hour deals. Paul and I are working with the coordinator of the event to get some more details. We have not been able to get caught up yet with him, so we don't have any new details on it, but we are working through that. That's what we've got.
Excellent. Thank you. See, again, please sign up. We're almost 280 members. We need 66 to fill all the slots, or if you want to take multiple slots, then obviously the number of head count comes down. Great way to get out, play radio, be an ambassador to amateur radio so people get to see who we are and what we're about, and absolutely promote the hobby. So again, great opportunity to give back into our community there.
Dan,
Paul, yes,
we're
Randy?
We're going to have to do a training too for people, so if you're going to sign up, please sign up so you're on the list when we do our training.
Yep, absolutely. Paul, weekly nets.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We are really fortunate to have two nets every week. And the first net is on Monday night at 8 p.m., and it's our digital net. How many of you have checked into the digital net? Excellent. Well, you can check in on D-Star, DMR, Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to our talk group directly. You can go to, you can log in various different ways, RF and via your node as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so please join us Monday night at 8 o'clock. We've revamped the digital systems. Wayne is not here tonight, I don't believe, but The system, Wayne and Jeff have been working together, and Dirk and other people, and the net's working very, very well, as opposed to last year about this time we were struggling. So I'm not sure we've come up with a new name. We called it the Mega Repeater. But regardless of what we call it, Monday night at 8 p.m., please join us. It's working out real well. Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. And somebody asks me the question every week, why is it 8:30 and the other net's at 8? Well, we had several club members that said, hey, you know, I got to put my kids to bed, and I've got to catch up with my emails at work, and they couldn't make the 8 o'clock, but they could make the 8:30, so we thought we'd try it at 8:30, okay? And it's working out fairly well. We're not getting as many check-ins as we would like, but it's our analog net on Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. You can come in on the VHF repeater, which is Squaw Mountain. You can come in Parker North, UHF repeater. You can come in via the Elbert County UHF repeater. All three of those are linked. Okay? You can go directly to our All-Star node, 410-460. Okay? Regardless of how you come in, you're on the analog system. And we've changed to where we have a topic every week now. And quite honestly, I'm going to tell you something. Regardless of what the topic is, I've been at ham since 1981. I've been learning something every single week, right? And so we have a topic every week. It's you can jump on if you have information you want to talk about the topic. Fine. If you don't, you can. I guarantee you will learn something. So please join us Thursday night at 8:30. We want to continue that net. We think it's important, but we also realize that we can't really continue the net with 10 or 11 or 12 people. We need to be in the 20, 25 range. So please join us Thursday night. And any questions about our nets?
How do you sign up to be a net control operator?
Hey, great question, Dan. You can go on the webpage under the event tab. You can pick any date you want, and you just put your call sign in. You'll get an email from us acknowledging you signed up. We have a script that's on the net. You can use our script. You can use somebody else's script. Your script. You can use Dan's script. And you don't have to know anything about the topic for that evening. Okay? You're just going to run the net. If you've never run the net before, it's not hard. There's no right way or wrong way. And if you miss something, like sometimes I do, somebody reminds me, and we get that at the end. But we've changed the format just a little bit on Thursday night net, so we don't do announcements or anything first. We just jump right in. We just jump right in and do the announcements at the end of the net. How many people can join us this coming Thursday night? Excellent. All right, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that. Remember everybody's name. But anyway, they're doing great. The nets are doing very well. I want to thank Dirk and Jeff and Wayne for keeping all those systems
Absolutely.
operating. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Dan, real quick on that
Sir.
topic, I think Ryan could probably chime in on this. There was an issue where you would sign up to be net control station. There was a blip in it, but I believe that's all been corrected, so when you do it, it'll be just like Paul said.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Any questions on the nets? Get on the air. Please get on the air. Very, very important. Exercise those privileges. A lot of us worked hard to get either your tech, your general, your extra. Any advanced operators in here? There's like few and far between advanced operators anymore. I think I know of one in the club is Don.
I used to be one.
Yep.
Don,
CFI, yeah.
Mobile radios this Thursday is the topic.
Mobile radios, this Thursday is the topic for the net. Mobile radios, you won't want to miss it. All right, moving on. Great opportunity coming up. The ARRL Volunteers on the Air is this year, 2023. And as part of that, the ARRL is actually piggybacking on a very successful event that went on for the 100th anniversary of the ARRL, in that each state is able to activate, and each ARRL, not only the division, but the sections, can operate as W1AW. So we actually have a weekend slated. It's actually a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday It's been going out on the email blast. If you are an ARRL member, you can sign up and actually operate as W1AW/0. Great opportunity to bring one of the most prestigious call signs on the air. So if you're interested in that, check the email blast. There's information on how to sign up. There's a link that actually goes back to Amanda, K1DDN, our section manager. And she's, her and her team are managing the coordination of those schedules. If a schmuck like me can figure out how to figure out the schedule, it'll be absolutely easy for you to sign up. So again, if you're an ARRL member, great way to sign up and operate as W1AW. If you're not an ARRL member, another good reason to join. You get to operate a very prestigious call sign. Guaranteed you will get pileups. No matter if you're operating voice, CW, one of the digital modes, you will have a mess of pileups because everybody wants to make contact with W1AW. So any questions on that? Brad? Did I skip one? Well, I did skip one. Well, that's what happens. I was so excited to talk about W1AW. Elmer, a new member committee.
So my name is Jerry. I'm AG7U. You've already heard several times that this month's Elmer is going to be on solar. We're going to have 4 stations kind of set up. So you'll get to see 4 ways individuals have approached solar. So come see that, get hands-on, scratch and sniff, whatever you like. Next month for May, we are going to be building these 2-meter tape measure Yagi antennas. And the topic for May is going to be fox hunts. So this goes together. We have kind of pre-assembled 25 of these kits. And by pre-assembled, I mean we've kind of kitted them together. You still have to assemble this. We do have this to follow. We will have an instruction manual. We will bring tools. We can get everything done during an Elmer night. So we have 25 of these good to go in exchange for 20 of your dollars. Show of hands. Who's going to be interested in building one of these? Yeah. Excellent. And then last month, we announced an Antenna Build Challenge. We're calling it the Cobra Head Challenge. This is the Cobra Head because it looks like a head. It is actually kind of for test instrumentation. It is a binder clip is really what it is called. I built one that I demoed last month. This is a jungle antenna. It's for VHF. We have a radiate vertical here. We have 3 ground planes sloping down here with my feed point on this binder clip. We've had 19 people sign up for this Antenna Build Challenge. So we have 13 slots left. I hope I can get some people to come up tonight and also sign up for this build challenge. We're interested to see what will you create around this centerpiece.
Jerry, what's it cost?
That is the best thing. And I'm going to use your verbiage. Free, 90 free. It is free.
Shut the front door.
It is. So please, come sign up. Give it a shot. Even if you don't know what to do, ask the Elmer crew. We'll help you. We'll help you build something.
And wait, there's more?
Wait,
more.
And on the 28th of June, everyone's going to be bringing their antennas that they built. And we're going to have a Best of Show award. Okay, Best of Show. Chad says he's going to win. But I stuck my neck out here, and I hadn't talked to the board yet. I said we're going to do it anyway, and then the board backed me, so I'm really glad. But the prize is not a cheap radio. And if you have a Baofeng, please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you're going to be. But the board is going to provide a radio to the winner, and it's going to be in the $350 to $450 range. Okay.
That's what happens when I miss a board meeting.
And,
Robert, were you there?
It's going to be a handheld. Yaesu, Kenwood, or Icom. But there's more. Let's say you already have that handheld. Receipt's there. Take it down to HRO. Pick up a mobile. Pick up something else that you want. So anyway, Best of show. This gentleman right here is in charge of the.
I'm in the show. I'm competing.
Oh, you are?
I'm competing.
All right, so we got to put together a group of people to judge, but that's you want to get one of these things from Jerry tonight and get your thinking caps on. And Chad is already working on it.
I got carbon fiber coming already, if that tells you anything.
Okay. And I will say you have plenty of time, right, Jerry?
That's right. So we are doing this at the end of June. And this dovetails into June's Elmer topic, which is antenna analyzers. So we'll talk about antenna analyzers for maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll break out everybody's antenna, throw them on there. If we burn through the library's time, I'm hoping for good weather. We'll just move the show downstairs, outside, have a good time playing on maybe these new antennas, and keep it going.
I usually use the word burn, but.
So the antenna has to work, not just be attractive.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It has to work. Yep.
There's the miscongeniality antenna award, right?
But wait, there's more. I've been busy. Wow. I built another antenna. I spent a lot of time on this. So I dug through my bits and ends, and instead of using the binding clip as the centerpiece, I've used it as the end piece. It is now a top hat. So this is BNC to SO239 to PL259, back to BNC, back to binder clip.
Look at that.
I made an antenna. I made a quarter wave antenna. So please give your hand or give it a shot. See what you can build. Come get a binder clip for me today. Love to see what you do in June.
Love it.
And you may get extra points if you wear a jumpsuit.
No, now that was a deduct on points, wasn't it?
Well, there was a vote we took at the meeting that you missed.
Yeah, you
I'm
missed
not
two
gonna go
board
into it right
meetings.
now.
Yeah,
It has
we'll get
something-
you up later.
it has something
We
to
still
do-
have executive order, right?
Well, it has something to do with the president of the club and a jumpsuit, but we'll talk about that later.
Look good in orange.
That one. I also want to thank Jerry. He actually saved the meeting tonight by letting us use his laptop, so thank you for that, Jerry. All right, we talked about W1AW. Anybody from the repeater committee want to give an update?
Yeah, actually I got two things.
Okay.
Well, I'm not on the committee, but
Well,
anyway, I still got two things. Number one.
this might be a
We're
lie,
going-
but
Yeah. We're going up to do a big cleanup, sort out, figure out what's connected to what, figure out all the antennas sometime in the next couple weeks. Wayne's putting this together. Also, the owner of the repeater site has asked us, the free tenants of the repeater site, to do a little bit of cleanup on the site itself. And specifically, he wants to move out all the junk inside the building up on top of the mountain that's no longer in use and doing anything. We don't have details on that yet. Again, Wayne's kind of putting this together, but there'll probably be a sign-up volunteer who wants to go to the top of Squaw Peak and move a lot of dusty, dirty old junk out of an old building. So it'll be a great time.
there we go.
If you don't fall through the floor, but.
Free junk.
Free junk, yeah, exactly.
There we go.
But that's coming up.
Vintage radio gear.
Vintage equipment.
Dirk, you want to add to it?
Actually, I got a different topic. The Elbert repeater, we're having some microwave issues for internet. So you might see it up and down or linked and not linked. So, but standalone, it should work. But we're trying to resolve the issue with the microwave out there. So.
Thank you. And you had one other?
Nope.
Or is that it? Okay.
I'm done.
Well, I got one.
Oh!
We could use those microwave dishes we pull off the tower and take them.
You don't want those.
I do have one thing. I don't know if you knew, but Wayne hurt himself. So his ankle, I guess, twisted his ankle. So he'll be hobbling around for a while.
I told him his basketball career was over.
Yeah.
Tell me it was something cool that he did. I mean, like saving the neighbor.
Double gainer or something, you know. Twisted his ankle.
Just walked around on a sidewalk.
Fell off.
Probably doing satellite, I bet, like he normally does. All right. Well, Wayne, get better, buddy, if you're listening in. All right. Portable ops.
Nothing on portable ops. Just
Moving on.
Watch the blast. We have an event every month.
Excellent. Thank you. Next is support the PRA through King Super. So if you are a King Super shopper, in your account online, you can go into the community rewards and select a charity of choice. The Parker Radio Association is a 501c3, absolutely partnered up with King Soopers and the Kroger Corporation. So what happens is that quarterly we get a kickback from Kroger Corporation back to the PRA for our group's purchases. So even if you're a King Soopers shopper here, or you have family members who may shop at a Kroger grocery store across the country, same program falls under the umbrella. If they have not selected a charity of choice, maybe you would kindly ask them to select the Parker Radio Association. We do get several $100s back each quarter from King Soopers, so it is a very, very good program for us. It allows us to do the things that we do, not only through the Elmering, but it also helps us offset costs for antenna builds. It helps us offset costs for field day, helps us with asset purchases like HF loaner equipment and things like that, repeater maintenance. So it certainly goes a long way, and hopefully you will, if you haven't selected a community rewards charity through King Soopers and Kroger, you would do that through the PRA. So any questions on that? Bill?
Yeah, the Amazon Smile program came to an end.
It did.
You know, I was supporting them myself. I bought so much on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was disappointing to see that it ended, but at the same time too, if you've probably watched their stock price over the last few months, you kind of go, it might make sense. So, yeah, kind of a bummer there. Field day. Who wants to talk about field day?
Scott and I will.
Well, he's saying you. So.
Okay, I've been up here too much, but field day is our premier event. Woodland Park Campground. We have plenty of sites reserved if you're tent camping. We're going to have a community cooking area. If you want to camp in a tent, you're good to go. If you're bringing a trailer up, all the reserved sites are already reserved in the whole campground. But there are first come, first served sites. There's a group of 8 or 10 people that are going up on Wednesday prior to the actual field day. You're welcome to come up with us on Wednesday. And I can assure you, if you get there on Wednesday, you will be able to get one of the first come, first served sites. We're putting a lot of work into this. We need some help, and we're going to put some stuff out on the blast the next couple of weeks. We're going to have a meeting in about 3 weeks of everyone that wants to get together and assist in some way. We're also going to have a detailed schedule that's going to come out here shortly, because we have some other activities going on Saturday. Fire building contest, some survival stuff that we're going to be doing. Our fox hunt. Fox hunt. Randy's going to be doing a fox hunt. And Scott. And then our theme this year is keep it simple. So simple antennas, 2A, and it's going to be fantastic. So when the sign-up sheet comes out, please sign up early.
And often.
And often. Hamburgers, hot dogs provided by the club Saturday night. We usually have about 75 people for dinner. If you want to come up for the day on Saturday, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to camp, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
What's the parking like?
We're good on parking. We're back at Colorado Campground this year. We're good on parking. There are some, you may have a slight walk, but the campsite's not that big. We will take care of the parking without any issues. We're good there. Any other questions about field day? Yes, sir.
What's it cost to come to field day, and how do I make a reservation?
Your membership dues.
Yeah, you have to date on your membership. No, everybody's welcome. There is no cost to come to field day. And what was the second question?
And how do I make a reservation to show up?
There will be a sign-up genie, genie, monkey, genie. Look, I take care of other stuff. I don't take care of all the monkey genie stuff. That'll come out. You need to sign up on the whatever it is. I don't do well with those things, but sign up, please. Let us know. We need to know how many people are coming and how many are going to be around for dinner. And if you want to set up antennas, we'll give you that information. You can come up ahead of time, help us set up antennas, set up stations. And we're also going to do a portable deployment as well if we have time. So a lot going on that weekend. And if you ask me the dates, I believe it's the weekend of the
25th, 6th, 7th.
Sounds right.
24th.
Last full weekend in June.
Yeah, last full week in June. Any other questions about field day?
If you've never operated field day, guarantee you are going to get a baptism by fire of getting on the air, making a ton of contacts, and having fun. If you've never operated HF, this is a great way that you're going to get hooked. I guarantee it. Another thing too, if you have family members that maybe you want to invite, bring them along. That would be awesome as well. If you have friends that, hey, what's this amateur radio thing? Bring them along. We will get them on the air. Even if you're not licensed, if you're a technician, if you're a general, you will operate under the club call sign. You'll have people there. You'll be able to exercise all the amateur radio privileges that are there. So absolutely great opportunity to have some fun at field day.
And if you come up early on Wednesday or Thursday, we'll be doing four-wheel drive trips and,
Fishing,
shooting,
lots
fishing,
of
shooting, people in the woods stuff. So by all means, come up early.
There we go. All right, moving on, the remote station initiative. Tom, you have any updates on the remote station?
No, John and I need to connect on it. We were at a point where we had made some decisions related to, the starting point we were going to do. Because when we started the remote station, it was sort of like the sky. We were sort of dreaming what kind of station, what kind of location, all that kind of stuff. And the last time that John and I talked, and I think that if some of you were in those meetings for the remote station, we were going to scale it back, do a proof of concept, simple software. Was it going to be used by people? And those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about establishing in a
closing in 20 minutes.
Relatively quiet RF environment, a remote station that you can operate from your HOA house via a computer system and get on the air with a decent antenna and a decent radio. So if you can't put something up at your house, for instance, you have the opportunity to do that. That's the goal of it. But we want to set up some basic level of functionality before we go whole hog with some really fancy thing, just to see, are people going to use it, that kind of thing. So we were kind of at the point where we had some decisions made, and then we haven't met for a while.
Okay, good update, thank you. Any questions for Tom? All right, moving right along. Website status and update, Jeff, anything on there?
Not really. Wayne got us a nonprofit license for one of the big plugins we use for calendaring and scheduling, so that'll be prettier, nicer, cleaner, and updated further out in time now. While I'm standing up, if it's okay, I got one other thing.
The floor is yours.
We participated, Kermit, his wife runs the Elbert County
Self-reliance.
Not Expo.
Well, it was Marketplace only because a company in Maine.
Someone owns the Expo.
Yeah, you cannot use Expo, that's ours. And we said, we're sorry, we'll change it. But everybody still refers to it as Expo.
So the Expo that's not an Expo. We participated for the second time this past weekend. Had an enormous amount of people come by our booth. It was absolutely ridiculous. We had a speaking slot. We talked about radio, not just ham radio, but GMRS, FRS, MERS, CB, and ham radio, and packed the house, had lots and lots of people participating, came by and asked a lot of questions. We got another one. We haven't had a discussion or committed to anything yet, but there's another one coming in
October 7th or something like that.
Yes.
So we have presumably the option of participating again.
That'd be awesome.
We had 6 or 8 or 10 club members come by throughout the course of the day. It's at the Elbert County Fairgrounds in Kiowa. But we'll send out an email on the Sunday blast when this is coming up again in October. But it's a great thing to come to. Lots of great people, lots of great vendors, and really good breakfast burritos and brisket sandwiches.
Even better barbecue.
The barbecue, yeah.
It was killer.
So
Yeah, I know a couple guys that ate up the last of the,
yeah.
I wonder who that is.
Randy.
I want to add that Jeff did a great job on his presentation.
He did. He did.
I mean, you know, everybody was there because they were trying to leave and we blocked the doors and stuff. No, that worked out.
No, it was really great.
Very good.
Well, Kermit, Jeff, thank you. That just absolutely great opportunity for us to promote amateur
I
radio.
would like to comment that these expos, as they're called, expos, are fundraisers. The expo last August raised over $5,000 for the sheriff's department to purchase portable defibrillators
Excellent.
for the squad cars. And this one went to ECHO, which is the Elbert County Community Outreach, which is helping people step up. And I think this next fall we're going to add the Kiowa food bank into it.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Thank you. Robert, we're going to throw it over to you. Shirts, badges, and the financial report. So you get...
Checking account's in good shape. We have $12,300 in the account right now. All of the groups, and we'll scroll down there, Dan, we're all pretty much fully funded now for all the different groups and committees, so we've got plenty to pull off the stuff we've been talking about. Certain orders are now in. Be a few weeks before we get those back. Of course, if you haven't seen the links on the website, we've got new badges available.
Very cool looking, too.
Chad here, his company. So, you see a few of those in the room here, so.
Great local company, by the way.
Yeah, local company, so, yep.
There you go.
There it is. That's one of the new ones. I like mine better.
Randy's got 6 of them, so he's...
Yeah.
When he picks out his outfit for the day.
Yeah. When I wear my jumpsuit, I'll wear all my flair.
Soviet general.
And I'd like to thank Chad for being able to give us different varieties of badges that we can now call them PRA, so that's where we're at with that.
Excellent. Any questions on the financial? Something about the, okay. Problems on the digital net, okay. Wish we were there. Any questions for Robert or the financial position? All right. Last comment.
I got one. I've got a donated 4BTV vertical HF antenna in my garage that needs TLC, but it's available if somebody wants it, they can come get it.
There you go.
It's donated kind of like, well, when Ray left, he gave it to me, you know, it's like, we tried it one time on a special event, and it's too much trouble. So, but if somebody wants an HF antenna.
Oh, look at that. How perfect.
Get a hold of me.
Yeah, 10, 15, 20, and 40.
Yeah.
Get on the air.
Yeah.
Could probably use a coat hanger and make contacts now. If you're looking for, I got 2 giveaways in the back. If you're looking for a new Yaesu hat, there's 2 of them back there. You are welcome to take those. Or if you're looking for a radio bag or backpack, if not for you, maybe for someone else, it's there for the taking. BSN, brand spanking new, never mobile. There you go. I want to thank you for coming out for tonight's meeting. Certainly do appreciate it. I want to thank Jeff Korpinski, all the way from North Carolina, gave a great presentation. Hope you can join us at Elmer Night coming up next week, the 18th, right back here at the library. We're either in this room or the one right next door, one of the two. Get your hands on with some solar, which will be awesome, and start thinking about some of the other special events coming up, particularly Field Day. We're going to need help. Paul?
Parking lot, wireless rodeo.
Yes.
On the 22nd.
There we go.
Bring your vehicles out, set up at portable stations. Parker United Methodist Church.
Is that on the website?
It is, and we have the
Even better.
on Sunday. We'll have another last announcement this coming Sunday.
Sounds good. Again, thanks everyone for coming out. Safe journeys home. We'll see you next week at Elmer Night. Thanks again.
Come get your Cobra head.